Hey everybody, this is Brent Knight, and appreciate everybody being with us here today. I also have Melinda Knight with us, and one of our longtime employees, Kevin. And I think Kevin, you were when we first started Intuitive Safety Solutions. You may have been our very first employee back in.
Really? I thought it was one of the first four.
It definitely first four, but it may have been number one. I'm not sure. But
Wow.
we appreciate you being with us, Kevin. And Kevin has a story for everybody. But before we get into that, I want to kind of introduce this in the purpose of why we're doing this interview today. We're talking about the topic everybody wants to talk about, COVID. The last 18 months have been absolutely brutal on all of us, and I don't just mean all of us on this call or watching this, but everybody in the U.S. and everybody in the world. It's been unprecedented. We've been challenged in ways we never thought or even conceived possible, and it's been really hard. And on top of that, we've received so much mixed messaging and mixed communication from the media, from the government, from the CDC, that it's been really hard to know what's fact and what's not. And the problem is it's confused everybody. And as a result of that confusion, I think trust is probably at an all-time low with our government. And now our government's telling everybody, get vaccinated. And people are struggling with that because they don't want to be told you can't go to a restaurant, you can't go to a concert, you can't eat at a restaurant, you have to wear a mask. People are tired of it. And now everybody's saying you have to get vaccinated, and people are saying, wait a minute, I don't have to do anything I don't want to do. So we're going to talk about the why, the WIFM, what's in it for me. And as we get into that, we're going to interview Kevin for a very specific reason here. But one thing I'd like to share is that the weekend of February 6th through the 9th of 2020, Melinda and me and the boys went to Disneyland. And when we got back, our youngest got sick over President's Day weekend. And then Melinda and our oldest Peyton got really sick for over a week. And then finally I got it as well. And Melinda was so sick that the kids watched her taken away in an ambulance twice over a course of a week. We were at the doctor on and off. And at that point in time, nobody wanted to see us. Don't come here. We just stay home. That's what we were being told. Hey, we can't test you for COVID because we have to save those tests for healthcare professionals. So, Melinda was in a bad way. And finally they tested her. And while she was taken one night late, I think at 11 o'clock at night, she was taken in the emergency room. They accessed the state system and identified, yes, she was COVID positive. And I can attest that I spent the better part of 6 months taking her to specialists and appointments, trying to get her right again. And here we are 18 months later, and my sense of smell and taste still aren't normal, and they never will be. So we've had a personal experience, and we know that this is not a farce. This is a real deal, and it's not a cold. It's not the flu. It's not the chicken pox. It's not mono. It is something very unique and different, and something that was designed and engineered more than likely in a way to affect us differently than any other virus in history. So the trend we're seeing now in the safety industry is that people are getting sick and they're not getting vaccinated. I know that in the last year plus that we've had 6 or 7, maybe 8 safety professionals working for us in the field who have contracted COVID. As far as I remember, all but one of them ended up with significant symptoms. At least 3 or 4 ended up hospitalized. And right now it is July 20th. We have a former employee, recent employee, who contracted COVID and is in the ICU right now in a hospital fighting for his life as we speak at this moment with COVID. COVID is dead.
He's
It's
only in his
non-existent,
30s,
and
and
he's
he's
in
only
his 30s.
yeah, he's not old.
He's in his 30s. He's not a 50-year-old man like me or somebody who's more elderly. And he is fighting for his life right now. And we were worried about him, and there's nothing we can do to help him at the moment. But ultimately, it has not gone away. COVID is here to stay for a long time. And, I feel pretty strongly. I had COVID. I'm fully vaccinated, proud to say I'm fully vaccinated. Guess what? My arm hurt for a few days and I felt a little bit off. Big deal, right? I continue to wear a mask. I go to Kroger, I go to Costco, I go to the gym and work out. Yes, I work out with a mask on. It's not that hard because I'm protecting myself and I'm protecting other people as well. So, getting into that, we want to interview Kevin because Kevin had an experience. Now, Kevin, what were your feelings about COVID? Because you were traveling for us. I think you were in Montana when you got it. And you were traveling around at different jobs, Eastern Oregon, et cetera. What were your feelings and thoughts about COVID before you actually got it?
Well, I call this the COVID because I'd literally been growing it since COVID started. Back in November, before it actually went worldwide, I was following it on BBC as illness out of China. The same thing with SARS when it came out. BBC reported it and then it slowly trickled down. So I'd been following it since November and I'm like, this one sounds like it could be bad. So then I hopped to Burns. I went from Fort Rock working on solar fields out to Burns, Riley working on solar fields. And then I got sent to Montana. When I arrived at Montana, Roosevelt County had a total of 4 confirmed cases of COVID. And they kept on pushing back my release date. And I don't know why, but I had a really weird feeling after the second time they pushed it back. And what happened in Montana was they opened up the school system. And when they opened up the school system, it exploded. I do not know how I got it. Come to find out when I left that they were cleaning up a room right next to mine where a confirmed case of COVID is. So that's probably the hot spot where I caught it from. And that was just walking up the stairs, holding the banister and stuff like that. When I got it, for the longest time, I had symptoms, but I could still smell and I could still taste. So I was like, it's not COVID, I got something else. When I arrived there.
What were they like?
My symptoms were lethargic, weakness, a small cough that was intermittent. It wasn't regular. Just feeling crummy. It wasn't anything bad to where like, oh God, I feel like I'm going to die or anything like that. That happened later. So I was probably symptomatic for about a week, but because I could still smell and I could still taste, I was like, it's got to be something else, because that was the one main symptom that they kept on pushing. And then all of a sudden my cough became regular. My body started aching. I had cold sweats. And the weird thing about it is when I went in to get tested, the reason I went in is because I had a feeling of impending doom. I've been sick many a time before. I've been really sick with pneumonia a long time ago. And not a single one gave me that feeling. And it felt like I am going to die. It freaked me out so bad that once I was released, and I'm sick as a dog, I drove from Wolf Point, Montana, which is 16 hours away, all the way back to the house. And the reason I did that is because I thought if I need to go to the hospital, if I'm out in BFE nowhere, Montana, and I go to the hospital there, I'm going to die. We had it up here. I've been following it, been talking to my folks, been talking it to my sister. My mom and my sister are both immunization degradation. She had a diminished immune system. So she was a high priority, be very careful. And so it was coming back. So she was following it really close. I came back here and it was, if I had to go to the hospital, I'd make it. It took me 3 days to come back. And that's driving as far as I physically could. I was literally exhausted. I couldn't go any further. For me, regularly, I would have made that 10 hours. Would have drove straight, wouldn't have had no issue, no nothing. But because of the COVID, I was pushing myself. I was pushing myself hard because I was terrified I was going to die. Growing up, I did all kind of crazy crap that could have killed me easily. Didn't care nothing about it. This is the one that made me care about dying. And
What do you
it
think
took
led to
me
that doom, that impending doom? What
Yeah,
was it that gave you that feeling?
I couldn't tell you. It was everything. It was COVID to me was a system shock. It wasn't, I got a cough, I got this. It was my whole system was being attacked. I had the cold sweats, I had the shivers, I had everything. And it felt like there wasn't one thing that was making me sick. It was the whole body was against me. And it was bad enough, and it scared me so bad that I just wanted to get home. So if I was going to die, it'd be easier for my daughter to take care of my remains. I wouldn't have to worry about her trying to get me back from Montana.
I remember you were courteous enough to not go home. You went to a hotel, and that's a whole nother funny story we won't get into, but I came up to see if they'd let me into the first room you were in before you checked into the second to get your car keys so I could return your rental car. And they said, oh no, that's quarantined for a month. Nobody can go in there. Yeah, but I'll do it. I'll even sign a form. I've already had COVID. I'm not worried about it. Oh no, it's quarantine, that whole floor. But long story short, I know your recovery, and that was in between projects. So you were off, but I remember calling you saying, hey, you ready to go back to work? And you said, I'm not ready yet. How long did it take until you felt right enough physically and mentally to actually be able to go back to work?
It took me 2 months. And that was after I quit showing symptoms. So 2 months later, it was like I could drive to Seattle and not have to pull over and try to take a nap. If I could have slept for 24 hours a day, I would have. To this day, I still get it every now and then where all I want to do is sleep. It's not that I'm tired. It's not that I'm exhausted. I just want to go to sleep. And that's the main residual effect I've had off of COVID. And it doesn't hit regularly. I can't tell you when it's going to happen. I don't even, I can't even go, oh, okay, I'm feeling like this is going to happen. It's like, holy crap, all I want to do is go back to bed. We're talking 1 o'clock in the afternoon. I'm like, I got stuff to do. No, I want to go to sleep. And I've never had anything like that. And this is, God, 9 months later. And it attacks randomly. And I've never had anything like this. And the reason I wound up getting inoculated was due to the fact of my mom, my sister, and my baby's mama is going through a lymphoma. So she's got a degraded system, and I still want to see my daughter. So I got inoculated to help protect them.
How bad was the vaccination? What did you fear about it, and what was it like?
Okay, the vaccination, I kept on hearing it was the second shot that was the bad one. So she's getting the shot ready. I got it done down at Safeway. She's getting the shot ready, and I go, well, what are the side effects? And she goes, oh, they're generally mild off of the first one. The second one's really bad. She gives me the shot and goes, unless you already had it before. And I went, well, I had it back in November. She goes, oh, your symptoms might be severe. I went to work that night, worked all night, and I'm like, maybe I didn't have it. Maybe, I just had something else and it just freaked me out. As soon as I stripped down and went to bed, I went into full body shakes. I was like, okay. And it was that way for 2 days. It literally knocked me down for 2 days. And then after that, I was fine. The second shot just hurt. I was down for a day just because I didn't think I could drive all the way down to Seattle to go to work. Called them up and they're like, yeah, no problem. That was a 1 day.
So would you prefer the shot or would you prefer COVID?
The only difference, there was 2 symptoms I didn't have with the shot. The 2 symptoms I didn't have were the cough and the feeling of impending doom. And once you ever have that feeling, it will never leave you. It's like, oh God, man, we're talking, I'll wake up out of a nightmare and I'll feel that way. And it's like, this ain't right. I mean, this literally will affect me for the rest of my life just because of how intense it was.
So,
on the second shot, my toes hurt. I had joint aches and I've never had my toe joints hurt. And it's like, okay, this is weird.
But if you were recommending to those out there who haven't had COVID and haven't been vaccinated, if you had your choice of getting vaccinated or getting COVID for the first time, which would you pick?
If they said I had to go through the symptoms every 6 months for the rest of my life, just to reboost the vaccination, I'd have symptoms every 6 months for the rest of my life. It was nothing compared to what I went through. Absolutely nothing.
I'm a firm believer that everybody will eventually get vaccinated or get COVID or both.
Yeah,
Eventually.
the vaccination's survivable.
Yeah.
And the Delta variant mutates every time it goes from host to host to host. That's the thing
Yeah.
people don't understand. It's so politicized that this vaccine is a way to there's so many different beliefs. I don't even want to get into the political aspects of it, but the people that predominantly tell me they're not getting vaccinated, it's not for health or medical reasons. It's for political reasons. And
Yeah.
if you were to tell somebody in the industry, especially the safety industry, Kevin, we are about health and safety, well-being. And if this is something we can all do to provide a health and safety workplace, and a healthy and safe environment in general, what would you tell safety professionals who haven't done this?
I'd say get it, especially if you're traveling, because you're going to be exposed to different things. In the tunnel, I was really worried about my friends that are still working in tunnels, because the tunnel's a petri dish. It goes through, it gets circulated back. If your kid gets sick, next thing you know, that whole tunnel's sick. With COVID, it's like it could wipe out a whole bunch of my friends. Just one guy go in there. When I was growing up, it's like, I can stay home and be miserable, or I can go to work, get paid, and be miserable. So, you show up work sick. This is the one that's made me reevaluate that. It's like, no, I can't do this. I can't risk getting somebody I know and somebody I care about dead. And it's not sick, it is dead. I just found out 2 weeks ago that a friend of mine, she got it and actually killed her lungs. She was not available for a lung transplant, because for you to get a lung transplant, you have to be able to breathe on your own. And her lungs were gone. They showed the x-rays and there were holes in her lungs, and they go, this isn't pneumonia. This is all that material that was supposed to be there is dead, and it's gone. It is no longer there. And that really freaked me out.
Well, you should see after 6 months from the x-rays from when I got COVID and got pneumonia, and I'm healthy. I'm in my 40s. I mean, I have no underlying conditions, nothing. That's what freaked people out, because I was kind of a health, into fitness and health, and it kicked my ass. And from the time I got COVID through 6 months of seeing x-rays every single week, full of white. I mean, it took 6 months for my lungs to heal. I'm lucky because the doctors were early, and they really took good care of me, and at Ever Clinic. And because of them, it was able to heal. So I didn't have that permanent damage, but it kills the organ. When it gets in there, it can really do a lot of damage to all kinds of organs.
I think where a lot of people are under the misconception on this is the randomness of it. It's not like, okay, you get it, you got this, and you're dead. You get it, you got this, or you're really sick. It's like, well, he had it. He tested positive, and he had sniffles for 3 days. It's a total randomness to the severity of it.
Yeah, and the viral load that you have, there's a big difference that can really affect how sick you're going to get.
Yeah, and like you say with that,
very high viral load.
But it's because they push, the fact that Joe Schmo got it and it barely affected him, and they're not saying like 30 other people got it and it killed them. It's nasty.
Yeah.
It is. And like I said, it's a system shock. It goes from your lungs to your body to everything, and it just foobars everything.
Yeah.
I've never had anything like this. I mean, I've had sinus infection so bad it felt like my face was going to explode. I had that much pressure. And it's like, I'll take that 100 times over what I went through with COVID. And
one of the other things too, beyond like how crazy it is when you actually get the virus and you get it bad, and things you've never felt before and never seen before, it literally feels like an alien's in your body. But the biggest thing that I want people to, that isn't talked about, that beyond what people think and the misconception they have for the virus, or, you know, their political beliefs or the vaccine, the one piece of data I want everybody to retain is something called pre-symptomatic. That all of us have heard that word, but we don't understand what it means because it hasn't been explained. This is on John Hopkins, UW Virology. Every infectious disease specialist will tell you this. Pre-symptomatic, from the time you're infected to the time you have symptoms, is roughly 5 days. Across the board, that's about 5 days. In between there, at 2.3 days, halfway in between, you are at the peak of your viral load. This is what it was designed to do and makes it different than every single virus out there. Pre-symptomatic, at 2 days before you have any symptoms, between 2 and 3 days, your viral load is so high, you are the most contagious you are with COVID before you have symptoms. And then it goes like this. It's a spike at two days, and then you have symptoms, and it actually starts to level out after you have symptoms against the next 7 days. So it starts to go in this curve. So you are the most contagious before you ever know you have COVID. So think about, like you were telling about your friends in the tunnel, and think about how many people in 2 days when you're on the job site, how many people are you going to be in front of? And now nobody's wearing masks, and we're not even going to go into mask debate because everybody has their feelings. But that's what makes COVID so different. This is data across the board. This isn't a conspiracy theory. It's how the virus works and why it's so contagious. And that terrified me. And the reason why I know it's correct is because I got people sick before I had any symptoms. Like, I didn't see them after I was sick. Why did they get sick? And it's because of the pre-symptomatic. I was more contagious before I actually got sick or knew I was sick. And that if that shouldn't change people's their impression or their thoughts or their, you know, above all else, if that doesn't freak you out, you know, just let's look at that. And, you know, it's almost impossible to contain the virus if you don't know you have it for that length of time. That's a long time. A lot could happen. You see a lot of people between, you know, in that amount of time. So that's the biggest piece I wanted to get across, because I think people in the safety industry, most people don't understand that piece. I think a lot of people don't understand how the virus works when it comes to that. So that's the biggest thing I wanted to get across.
Well, let's tie it up with the business case, and tie it up also with the ethical side of this whole thing. So the business case looks like this. Kevin mentioned people on the road. A lot of folks on the road are non-exempt. That means they get paid when they work. They get overtime. They have benefits. They make a lot of money off per diem and wages, work a lot of hours. But on the flip side, being non-exempt, oftentimes there isn't paid time off, vacation pay, sick leave, etc. Salaried people often have that. But we saw that the average time away from not feeling well, testing positive, to double negative testing in order to come back to work was 17 to 24 days. Usually on that 21 to 24 day range is what we've experienced. What's going to happen now, and up until this point in time, if somebody was actively assigned to work, the CARES Act provisions with the federal government had a provision in there to compensate people who have to quarantine either because they've been exposed, they believe they've been exposed, they have a sick family member, or they have COVID themselves. And that is expiring. And ultimately what that's going to mean is that if somebody's on the road, and this isn't just with our company, this will be with almost anybody, and even with employees who are salaried, they only have so much paid time off. So they're going to get sick, or they may even be mildly symptomatic, but they're going to have to quarantine, and they're giving up that income. And if they're on the road doing a project like the kind of work we do, we're going to have to backfill them, because the job can't be without a safety professional for 3 weeks, 4 weeks, whatever it may be. So that means we have to backfill them. And what's going to end up happening is a safety professional who chooses not to get vaccinated and gets COVID, They're going to forfeit their wages because they can't work. Their per diem's going to end because it's going to somebody else who's replacing them. They're going to have to get themselves home, however they can get home at that point. And it's just a horrible thing. And then when they're ready to go back to work, they have to work back into rotation because somebody's backfilled them on the job, and now they got to wait for the next job to start up. So there's a strong business.
Talk about what would happen too if somebody who's a safety professional is on the job site and they're the one that's positive, and that the impact of us as an employer or a business in general, a safety professional being positive, and us how we have to deal with that.
Well,
The back end.
Yeah, there's a strong business case. And like I mentioned earlier, I mean, being safety professionals, we should set the example. And getting vaccinated shouldn't be political. It should be, in this case, if we have an engineered virus that was designed for a reason, which we don't know what that reason was, but if it was engineered, the vaccine is engineered to offset that virus. So, either way, you're going to be exposed to something engineered, one to help us, one to hurt us. And ultimately, we have to consider that. But it's really critical that as safety professionals, that we are that voice, and we encourage all those other anti or non-vaxxers or people who have trepidation to go get vaccinated. Because if we have a safety professional who contracts COVID and they take it to the job site and get everybody sick on the job site, I mean, what does that say about us as a company? Where's our credibility? And not only that, what does it say about them as a safety professional? Where's their credibility? Again, we just experienced this. Again, it is July 20th. And 2 weeks ago, at a point where any of us who wanted to be vaccinated have been, we experienced it yet again. And I know we have, there's somebody I know who took it to the office and got everybody in that office sick. And she has been in the ICU for 7 weeks. And they say it'll be another 1 to 3 weeks before she gets out. They think she's going to make it, but you're talking 2 months in the hospital, and she's in her late 20s, early 30s. So, this is not a virus that only attacks the elderly or
No.
It isn't.
That was misinformation big time. The one thing I want to say is I got sick at the right time, because when I got sick, the government dumped in money for unemployment and everything else. So I could literally take time off. So on that aspect, I took as long as it took for me to get healthy enough to where it's like, okay, I can go back to work and I'm not going to have any issues. If that hadn't happened, I probably would have been back within 3 weeks, if even then. And I wouldn't have been pretty. It would have been ugly for me. And chances are the job that I got sent to is like, you're still sick, get the hell out of here.
Yeah. Well,
But because
I
I actually had that $600 extra. And the thing about it is that's coming to an end too.
absolutely.
So,
And that's all coming, everything's coming to an end. So, I would say that if we influence one person and give them the confidence to make that move to help us get to the end of this pandemic, then this has been worth the time. And I'm any one of the three of us would be happy to talk to anybody who has questions or needs encouragement or has fears they want to discuss. We're here because we want to make sure that we end this thing. We're all tired of living in the COVID world. There's nothing more that we would like than to never, ever talk about or mention COVID again. So with that, we appreciate everybody's time. And any final thoughts, or are we good to sign off?
The last thought I got is I've had so many people come up and talk to me about my experience with COVID, because I'm open about it. I let everybody know. And I've had total deniers after I talk to them, and they're like, okay, I got to seriously rethink this. I'd rather be in a 40-mile-an-hour car wreck going through a windshield than I would going through that. Because that 40-mile-an-hour car wreck is going to screw up my shoulders, going to hit me in the head. It's going to do these things that I know, and I can actually plan on how to recover. It hit me in so many different ways at the same time. It was like, instead of getting in that 40-mile-an-hour car wreck, it's like I was walking across the street and got hit by a semi-truck. Everything hurt and everything was messed up. It's not just one little thing. It's your whole body, your whole system that seems to be fighting against you.
Yep, I can attest to that.
Well, we hope that this helps everybody out there, and we appreciate you taking 25 minutes to watch it. And if you have questions, drop us a comment or give us a call. Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Kevin.
Thank you. Y'all
Thank you,
take care, and I appreciate this.